Donald Trump was not the only one making himself look bad at the Al Smith dinner, because while Donald Trump's speech was unhinged and really just embarrassing for himself, you could hear laughs from the crowd, not with him but at him. The entire time comedian Jim Gaffigan, who was emceeing the event, probably did the most damage to Donald Trump. Now, we always talk about how Trump is his own worst enemy, but even his failings in his unhinged speech tonight could not keep up with what Jim Gaffigan had to say, and not only were they hilarious takedowns of Donald Trump, but it was so much better because we were able to see Donald Trump with his arms crossed, scowling, fuming, all angry at Jim Gaffigan's jokes, one of which specifically led the crowd to audibly gasp, and you could hear someone, because the mic picked it up, said you weren't supposed to say that, and it seemed like Trump was his most upset at that point. And we are going to get into that joke, into that take-on, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and want to join the community that we're building on this channel, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, really means a lot to me. Now let's get into this first joke from Jim Gaff.
By the way, RFK Jr. is here. Welcome, sir. RFK Jr. He, of course, is going to make America, he's part of the MAGA, Make America Healthy Again, right? I don't know if he's seen what Donald Trump eats, but Donald Trump eats like, well, me and the Cardinal.
Great start right there. I think you can also include Donald Trump's diet not making him healthy. We could take into consideration that he is the guy who told us during a pandemic to inject bleach into ourselves, so certainly not a PhD from Donald there, but just a great shot to start things off from Jim Jack Gaffin, keeping it light, and then he transitioned over to some of the people who Donald Trump really doesn't like, who were in attendance tonight, and brought up one name specifically who certainly upset Donald.
This room is undeniably impressive. It really is. The prestige, the wealth, the allegations. I mean, wow. And don't feel bad if you don't have any allegations yet, okay? Which reminds me, Letitia James is here. She had a great year. She's just back there watching all of you.
Yeah, I can't imagine that Donald Trump both being made fun of and bringing up Letitia James at the same time. I'm not sure that everything was necessarily stable up there. Of course, we saw him melt down in his speech, so he was obviously pretty grieved, but Jim Gaffigan not only going after the people who don't like Donald Trump, but the people who claim now that they love him and embrace him, and previously. Didn't I think you know where I'm going with this? He was talking about JD Pants.
Possible to not have a strong opinion about President Trump. You either think he is endearingly outspoken and brash, or you think he's a sociopath, and you'd like to be his running mate.
Gaffigan really just on fire to start, and yeah, that is a perfect description of JD Vance, someone who clearly thinks Donald Trump is a sociopath, clearly thinks Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, clearly thinks that Donald Trump is dangerous, but of course J. Vance, a seemingly sociopath. Of himself, we're not getting into diagnosis here, but he clearly is willing to sacrifice anyone and anything to get ahead in his career, and that is the only reason he is supporting Donald Trump. Two men who only care about serving themselves. It would be a match made in heaven, as we always say, if it wasn't such a match made in hell. But Gaffigan moved on from just the people who don't like Donald Trump to the people Donald Trump doesn't like. Yeah, he went after Donald Trump for his racism in a shot that left the crowd pretty stunned, but we're going to check it out right here.
This is, of course, a historic race for many reasons, right? If Vice President Harris wins this election, not only would she be the first female president, a black woman would occupy the White House, a former Trump resident. Obviously, you wouldn't be renting to her. I mean, that would never happen anyway. Maybe if Doug did the signing. All right. That one didn't work. Yeah, this has been an interesting presidential campaign.
As you can tell, Gaffigan is kind of starting to push the boundaries. We haven't gotten to that clip yet that absolutely stunned everyone, but we are in just a second, but he's really starting to warm it up. Clearly calling out Donald Trump for something that he does not get called out for enough. It's astonishing how much of a racist this man is, and I feel like we rarely bring it up just because there is so much else to get to. Earlier on the show, we brought up Donald Trump on the PBD podcast, once again accusing KLA Harris of not being black. It's a thing that he continues to do in the mainstream media, really just refuses to cover. It doesn't seem like they ever want to do their job or have any sort of journalistic integrity. It is up to Jim Gaffigan to bring up the fact that Donald Trump would not rent out apartments in Trump Tower to black Americans because he is a racist and he was investigated by the Department of Justice for his racial profiling, but that never gets brought up. But Jim Gaffigan continued to take shots at Donald Trump, as we can see in this clip right here.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't address the elephant in the room. You know, you're all thinking about it. Let me just cut to the point and point out who's not here. And of course, I'm talking about the middle class. That filthy group